I'm going to show you the different phases for the animal portrait. So the first is a blank piece of paper up here. You should put it always on a board that has a layer of paper underneath. Because if it's a little bit softer, you know how we've been talking about pastels do better with texture? Then that little extra layer of paper underneath gives it some give, and it wants to actually get the pastel a little bit more. So some of the different phases of this one. Then this is the first one that has some blocking. It is actually Miss Malden's dog that I started with a demo last time, and I'll talk to you about that blocking in a minute. And then the next phase will be when you start putting in just a little bit of values. And we start with, what are the rules for pastels? There's two main rules. Hard to soft and dark to light, but we're totally going to break them. But we need to know those rules somewhat. So I put the dark down first, but see, I did go ahead and put some light in. So I blocked in my darks and lights. I'm going to show you that. And then here's another phase with peaches, going a little bit further. And this one, of course, I'm making peaches a different color, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And then if, Annika, you can go over and take a picture of Foster's, who did some fun colors. I know that probably has a glare. And then I want to show you some others that have some voice and verve. So first, we're going to look at this horse. There may be a bar in the way, but the horse, notice it's pink and has a lot of verve and fun. And also notice on all these we have fun perspectives. And then we'll go over and look at the green dog, which has some fun voice and verve to it. And remember, where can you find some examples for some of these that I've shown you already? Some of the animal portraits. On Schoology, yeah. On Schoology, if you go to the major project, you can find some of those. So what I'm going to show you is I'm going to demo with, this is Lulu. Lulu is my friend Mark's dog, and she's a spaz. So I don't think I'm going to make her these real colors. I'm going to make her something fun. I think I'm going to use some complementary colors, pink, purples, some lights, because she is always moving around a lot and being crazy. I will show you the first blocking in, but I want to talk to you first about some different ways you can put it onto the paper. I like to use the smooth side of the paper. You don't have to if you liked, you've already done lots and lots of samples of using pastels and deciding what kind of paper you like. In fact, if someone has all of their samples on a board still, they learned how to do a sphere, and we did some videos that we already know. First thing is what, you guys? You have to make thumbnails. Now, I did these really fast because I felt like I knew that I was going to be able to draw this pretty well. If I questioned that, I would make them a little more detailed. But notice I started first. I drew the rule of thirds in there just to think about where I was positioning Lulu. I tried her going up like this. I tried putting the paper sideways. I tried going longer and skinnier. But really, my friend who took this photo wasn't me, and I know you guys are supposed to take your own photos, but my friend who took this is a photographer. So I kept trying to improve on the composition, and basically the composition's pretty good already, except I wish I had those paws in there. That would be fun. So when I draw it, if you look at this thumbnail kind of closely, I'm going to make this part very detailed and let the rest of it fade out in the back. So this will be the emphasis. We'll still be able to tell that Lulu's back butt is here and her little foot is sticking out there, but it's going to be faded. But it's a fun little shot. And I also liked how this photographer did it on this spiral rug. I'm kind of inspired by that round feeling, and also because Lulu's a spaz. So I drew that in my thumbnail a little bit too. I'm going to do that. Now, depending on the confidence level of your drawing, oh wait, did you bring out your, can we give a quick shot of some of the preliminary projects that we've done? We've learned how to do a sphere, and we did some videos that we already know. We tried some blending. What were the different styles that guy did? Do you remember? Scumbling, blending, I can't remember all the names of them. Feathering. And I teach not to blend very much. This guy taught to blend a lot. So we are going to talk about hardly doing any blending. Today I'm just doing the first step, and then we'll do another video for the next step. Apples, pears, working on making some nice blending. Thank you for showing that, Willow. All right, to get the drawing onto the paper, if you're not confident in your drawing skills, I would grid it. So how we learned to grid was, if you've had me in Art 1, is we folded the paper, folded it again and again. I'm going to show you, and stay right there, that I did this way on peaches when I went to Gritter. I folded the paper, folded it again. If you want to know how I grid, you can find that on Schoology on Useful Links. I have a video on how to grid and a bunch of papers on that. So if you wanted to grid then, do you remember, anybody remember how I would get this in proportion?
You measure the length of each box, and then you measure the length of your place where you're going to put it on.
Yes, yes, and I make a diagonal. Do you remember? If I were going to make this perfectly in proportion, again, you can look on Schoology to do this. I put the paper into one corner, and if I draw a diagonal all the way through the corner, wherever that hits here, if I draw it across, then I will have a square that's in proportion with this. Did you guys remember that? How to do that? Keeps it in proportion. I have been drawing for 150 years, so I'm pretty good at it. So I don't feel like I need to do a full grid, but you are welcome to do a full grid. I'm going to do what's called a partial grid. That's what I really wanted to show you today. So I printed out my picture in color, and then I printed out two in black and white, actually, and I don't know where the other one went, but for now, that's okay. I was going to fold one. So a partial grid is where you look at the overall image and you think about, what could I divide this in that would be easy to transfer? First, I do know I want, because of this photo is really good, I do want my paper to be in about this proportion. So I'm just going to check and see how close it is. It's pretty, if I go corner to corner, I'm going to very lightly draw a line. Let me tell you something that's important to know about pastels. Oh, look, my paper's goes up to the corner almost, so it's almost exactly in proportion. So I'm good. Good there to get this composition on here. Pencil. I want to talk to you about using pencil in pastel. If you put a lot of pencil on something, on the paper, the pastel doesn't have the tooth, because think about it, the graphite makes it really smooth. So if you want to draw with pencil, do it super lightly. Don't use a hard pencil. So this one is a 2B. So it's a dark pencil, but I'm going to draw with it really softly if I want to use the pencil. Partial gridding. So for this guy, I'm going to look at it and see, how can I make this into some geometric shapes that will be easy for me to draw it and get in proportion. First, I want to get the eyes in the right angle. I'm going to draw a line right through Lulu's eyes, so I can make sure when I position her up there, it'll be in the right angle. And then, through the center of Lulu's head, this is going to create a nice grid. I'm starting with then a cross. Then what else would help me? Probably, where's her ear? I can't see the top of her ear very well. I'll do another line through here. Put a line at the bottom. I'm going to keep my lines in angle with the eye line. And then along the side of her nose. Then the other thing I want is to make sure I get this ear in proportion, so I'll make a little box around that ear. Another thing you could do, I'm doing it all angular, I think that'll work, but you could also do like a triangle for her nose. So let's put this up here and do this blocking in. I'm going to draw it with pastel pencil because I know that then I won't have to fight the graphite at all. how do I sharpen a pastel pencil, you guys? Little X-Acto knife so it won't eat up the pencil. Little shave like that. And I know I told you I am going to do this dog in some crazy colors, but for my first drawing, I'm going to use a pastel pencil that's kind of close to the paper in case I want to smudge it out or erase it a little bit, which you can do on this part of the drawing. So first, I'm going to draw those lines in that I just put in here to give myself a partial grid. So what I'm doing is looking, can you see okay? If I had a halfway tick right here on my paper, this line is going to start right about here. I'm going to go ahead and draw that line in about the same angle. Now another thing is, this is not a person. If it were a person, I want this to look exactly like them. I probably would do a full-on grid if I were doing a person. But it's a dog. I want the feeling of the dog. Put in this other line. Again, this is just going to be my grid lines. I'm going pretty light. And I want to make sure I get this line coming right down in the right spot. So I'll give myself a halfway mark. So this one's over to the half a little bit. It's coming to right about here. And that is probably right about here. And then let's see, that's her eye, that's this. Let's get my other side line, which this one's a little bit further over here. And this will be my base guide just to put everything in. And I need the bottom nose line, which is about right here. So can you get a good look at, oops, I forgot one other thing for the ear. So what I've done is just made a grid, the same grid that I did on here. And then I can start drawing in where I see everything. I'm going to double check that in a minute because it looks like that line might be a little bit too far. So just to make sure I get it in the right spot, if that's my halfway mark, half of that is here. This looks like it needs to be over a little bit further here, so I'm going to move that over a little bit. And that tub, I think in that tub is an eraser. Can you grab me an eraser? At this point, you can actually erase a little bit of your pastels. Later, do you guys remember what I was talking about, how we get pastels off when we get a lot on there? Mm-hmm. Yeah, use an old paintbrush. And I'll be showing you that later when I go to some of the next steps. Let's see if I like my grid line now a little bit more. Yep, I want to bring this over just a hair. And then as I'm drawing, I can always change things, but that's going to keep me overall in the same and about the perspective that I want. I'm going to check one other thing. I really want to make sure I get this line in the right spot. So, you know, I always talk about measuring all the time. I'm going to measure just with my pencil just to see how far down that is, to see if I've got that about where I want it. That looks pretty good. Okay, so then I always like to start with an eye. I just do, and I'm going to gently get it all in there. This is where I want to get it to. Just blocking in like this. I did use a pencil underneath this. If you use pencil, after you use pencil, very lightly, you'll put in the pastel. Can you see right there where there's pencil and then pastel? I would go back in and erase my pencil after I put the pastel on any pencil that's still showing. So this is now just basic drawing from a grid pretty much. Let me move over here. And seeing where the eye is, not worrying about making it really perfect right now. I'm just trying to get it all in proportion. I am going to give myself a tick line here and right halfway here to make sure I get the eye about the right size, because it's a lot smaller than I just started. And I was thinking that was happening, so that's why I made it a little smaller. And then I'm just going to check how many eyes go in this square, this little grid I have. So grab this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think I've still got the eye a little bit big. By the way, if you're going to err on anything, err on making the eye a little bit big, because everybody, an animal's always cuter with big eyes. So even in that green one we showed earlier, the eyes are out of proportion big. Put that in just, okay. And I have to stand back a lot to make sure I'm still going where I want. Sometimes I put it there, look at it a little bit. Got that. Now I'm just kind of blocking in. Notice how I hold my pencil way out here while I'm blocking in. I'm going to block in the darks and lights on here. So there's a big area of dark after I get it drawn in. Put it in kind of loosely first, and then I'll go back in and fix everything, make it in better proportion. Now we have some serious foreshortening going on in this photo, don't we? So her nose looks huge, which will make it fun. I think I got that eye a little too big again. I'll move my center over just a little bit now that I started. Let's make the ear hanging down. I'm going to have to look at my original picture to see what's happening with that ear because my printout isn't showing it very well. Ah, there it is. Later we won't be able to erase when we have a lot more. I just tried to draw with the pencil on the wrong side. Did you see that? Okay, then I feel like when I'm looking at that the nose is a little long. Is that what you're feeling? Mm-hmm. So we're going to shorten that up a little. It means either I drew my grid wrong, it doesn't matter, but I can look at it because my grid was just to keep me kind of lined up. I think I'm going to move this whole nose up just a little bit. I'm going to move the nose right up here. But notice I'm standing back and looking a little. It's looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. Now I'm going to exaggerate the nose and make it a little bigger, just so it looks like it's more foreshortened, and maybe give it a little bit more angle. Then I want to position in, since I have my grid, where that foot's going to go later, kind of here. The butt, and I'll get that better later. Side of the body's going to be here, and these legs are going to come out barely, like here. Then step back and look a lot, and what I would do now, I've got it basically blocked in pretty well. One thing I'm going to double check for sure is make sure I have those eyes the right length apart. I'm going to count how many eyes across. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, starting from right over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I got that about right. So I have that about the right distance apart. The most important part is getting those eyes perfect and shiny and fun. If we get those eyes looking really glowy and wonderful, then everything else can kind of disappear out. So I feel like I have it blocked pretty decently for the next step, which then would be going in, and I could still use pastel pencil, but what I'd move to now is using the hard pastels. So the hard pastels, remember, are the skinny ones, the skinny square ones, the new pastels. So I would go there next, start blocking in my darks and lights. I think this is a good place to stop right now so everybody can get going on that, unless you can think of anything else that I missed. Thank you.
Boy, oh boy.
That was fun.